Hello and welcome to another Wild Ginger Running live session. I'm Tim, I'm a physiotherapist and endurance coach. I'm stepping in for Claire today, a little bit last minute, so just bear with me doing the weekly live session. And we've had a couple of questions come through on the Facebook page, but I'm afraid, like I say, it's a bit last minute and I've not actually got the questions rather cut and pasted to appear on your screen in front of you. But let me just load up the Facebook page in front of me here. So there's a couple of questions regarding fast packing. So I mentioned that we're doing it tonight rather than Wednesday because I'm off doing a couple of days non-stop in the lakes, doing a bit of fast packing there, and I thought I'd maybe have a chat about sort of why I'm doing that and why as runners we might want to include a little bit more walking and hiking into our normal sort of training program. Well, the first reason is if we're doing a lot of these ultramarathon events, is we're out there for maybe 10, 15, 20, maybe even 30 hours. I'm doing a race in September, which I'm expecting to take at least 30 hours. Now, we can't go out and replicate those kind of times in our weekly long run, but we still need to practice some of the psychological aspects of being out there for a long time. We need to practice our nutrition strategies. We may need to practice being out there at night time. And are you competent and confident navigating at night with a head torch? So incorporating some big, long hiking sessions and maybe multi-day hiking sessions. So when we're thinking about races that might be taking us 20 or 30 hours, we're generally going from one day into the next. So we're doing essentially multi-day events. So going out there and just hiking all day, so you're doing 10, 12 hours on your feet, just steady hiking, all this sort of fast packing idea. So you might be jogging some of the flats or run, walk, maybe jogging some of the easy downs, but otherwise just hiking. That gives us that time on feet. It teaches us that we are on the go all day, non-stop, rather than we go for a run for 3 hours, and even if we're doing a double run day, we might do an hour or two in the morning and an hour or two in the evening. But it's not the same as just continually on the move. So again, it teaches your brain to be constantly on the go, teaches your energy systems to be constantly on the go, but without the same kind of impact and pounding forces going through your legs. So it's a much safer way to get that big time on feet. And I'm going out there, I'm going to do about sort of 30 odd miles tomorrow with a friend of mine. Going to do the Abraham's Tea round. We're going to melt in this heat, so it'll be a steady away, stopping at every piece of water we can come across and having a little swim. And then I'm going to just carry on with that, and then just go out into the hills, into the lakes. And plan A, depending on how hot it is to then go and do a BG, a Bob Graham, over 2 days. But just that continually hiking, moving. And that 3, as the song goes, 3 is a magic number. And I've certainly found with myself and with a lot of my athletes that if you've got a really big ultra endurance event, so something in the kind of 100 miles plus range, if you can get 3 days on your feet, roughly 3 to 6 weeks prior to the event, that just gives you an epic endurance boost, that aerobic capacity boost. It doesn't have to be a lot of hard running, so it's just steady time on feet, but the knock-on effect of that is absolutely brilliant in a few weeks after that when it all kicks in. So if anybody has got any big long endurance events, maybe it's a 100-miler, maybe it's big long mountain events, maybe 100k in the Alps where you're going to be out there still for sort of 20 hours plus, trying to get a couple of long days on your feet, just hiking, not running, just hiking, will really set you up. Now, the hiking bit is also really important for maybe some of our other sort of shorter time duration trail events or running events. Because, let's be honest, we call ourselves ultra runners or trail runners, but do we run every single step of those races? And the short answer is no, isn't it? So making your walking pace as fast as possible, and I've talked about this in some of the other videos I've done for Claire in the past, but making that walking pace as fast as possible means that your slowest pace is maybe going to be faster than the other people around you. Interestingly, one of my athletes has just finished a 100 miler last weekend, the Dragon 100 miler in Wales. And although we have sort of worked on walking with him and incorporated that with going out doing walks with his wife, so more sort of social walking, and that's probably where the problem is he noticed that when he was running faster than everybody else around him in the race. But when he was walking, the other people would then go past him. So his walking pace wasn't quick enough. And that's something we need to work on. And it's probably because when he's gone out and done his walks with his wife, they have been a more social and more leisurely type of walk. Whereas what we need to be doing as trail runners and ultra runners is going out there and walking, but making it very purposeful, trying to make that walk as fast as possible. And if you practice that, making your walking super quick, it means that when you are power hiking up a hill or taking a walk break when you're on the flats, is that walking pace will naturally be quicker. So just make it that as soon as you're walking, your body only knows how to walk fast, not slowly. So it just means that, yeah, that slowest pace is faster than maybe the other people around you. Because let's be honest, there is a big chunk of some of these races where we are walking. So we might as well practice it in training. And think about the comment I made before about this sort of time on feet and sort of training your body to be going all day. That's where, again, you can bring walking into your training program by maybe going for a run first thing in the morning, but then going for a walk at lunchtime. And then in the evening, again, either going for another run or going for another walk. Trying to add in extra walking throughout your working day. So, if we are still working from home, then trying to get that sort of mid-morning, mid-afternoon break and just go for a quick walk around the block rather than just sitting still all day for sort of 8 hours. If we are going out doing errands, then again, walk rather than drive if you can. Gets that extra little bit of training into the legs. And if you maybe record that and monitor how much you're doing, you'll probably find by the end of the week there's a big chunk of your training time which has actually been walking, and you've built that up. A good friend of the show, Rachel Sheldrick, I spotted she put a post out the other day about her sort of split of run training and non-run training, so hiking, strength and conditioning, swimming, aqua jogging, stuff like that. And what she's found is it's now a 50-50 split. So 50% of her hours is running, but 50% of it is hiking and strength and all this kind of stuff. So think about how many hours a week of running you're doing. Are you doing the same number of hours in non-running activities which support your running? So there's a question for you. So that would be the idea about going out there and trying to just hike and fast pack all day. So what are some of the things that you maybe want to think about if you are going fast packing or trying to include a couple of long days on your feet? Well, if you're going out into the hills, it's a question of, are you going to be camping out there? Are you going to be wild camping, or are you going to be making use of camp sites? Or maybe if you're going out to the mountains, making use of mountain huts, whether that's bothies in the UK and Scotland, or if you're over in Europe, then obviously there's a fantastic network of mountain huts that you can access. So I was thinking about the routes that you're doing. Think about what the resources are along route. So my plan is I'm going to be wild camping. Bear in mind, actually, going out into the Lake District, technically speaking, you're not supposed to wild camp. But then there are rules to kind of get you around that in terms of making sure that you're out of sight, that you're not interfering with sort of watercourses in terms of any sort of toileting. Thinking about where your tents are, not using sort of cooking facilities which are going to risk a wildfire, which is obviously a major issue at the moment. The land is obviously so very, very dry. So think about, are you going to be wild camping in terms of taking a tent? Are you going to be taking a bivvy bag or just a tarp? What kind of kit are you going to need at night time versus daytime? So are you going to need a decent sleeping bag, or in this weather here, you can probably make do with just a very thin sleeping bag. But you may want then that sort of change of clothes for sleeping in versus your running kit day to day. I'm planning on using the same running kit for the 2 days, so I'll just accept the fact I'm going to be smelly by the end of the second and third day. But having something to change into in the camp is obviously something to think about there. And then it's about sort of your hydration and your nutrition. So food-wise, you want to be thinking about maybe taking dehydrated food out with you. So there's lots of products out there on the market where they've got dehydrated pouches of some, really quite tasty foods, actually. And another great friend of the show, Jen Scottney, I know she's done quite a lot of wild camping, a lot of fast packing recently, and she put a post out, I think it might be on her Instagram page. So check out Jen's Instagram page, where she was talking about some of the different products that she's been using when she's been going out fast packing. So I'm not going to repeat what Jen has already talked about, but I would often go for the dehydrated products rather than the old school boil in the bag. So going back to the military days of our sort of ration packs, whereas you boil that product in water to heat it up, but of course you're carrying a lot of liquid and a lot of moisture in those already. So go for the dehydrated ones, which are going to be a lot lighter. But then, of course, you've got to source some water when you're out there. So again, this comes back to our route finding and our route decision making in terms of where are we going to get our water from to do our cooking. So where are you going to be intending to camp or bivvy down. So that's something you need to think about there. And again, with the water, obviously you can't be carrying enough water for 2 or 3 days. So you're going to have to be refilling on the go. And I have had giardia in the past, so that nasty gut infection bacteria, which is not fun. I do not recommend. So you've got to be thinking about how you're going to purify this water. So generally, just for ease, I will take purification tablets. The water doesn't taste very nice after it, but it's easier than taking something like a pump, which is going to filter that water out, so it's a little bit lighter in terms of weight. You can get things like life straws, which have got filters in them, and of course you can get other water purification equipment. It's just it weighs a little bit more, and I'm trying to go as light as possible. But if you're not worried about that too much, then there are other water purification systems out there where you maybe got to pump it through, and it just takes a little bit of time to get your water through. Whereas with tablets, fill your bottle, pop a tablet in, wait 15 minutes, and it's good to go. And if you're taking maybe some electrolyte tablets, which have got a bit of flavour, or maybe some Tailwind stick sachets or other powdered energy drink, then when you mix it in there, then you don't taste the chemicals of the water purification tablets. And then thinking about how you're going to carry this all. So you got to think about obviously maybe a larger pack than you would normally use when you're out running, your sort of running vest in terms of that. But of course, the bigger the rucksack you take, the more stuff you're going to be tempted to put in it, so the heavier it's going to get. So again, I would say go for the smallest pack that you can possibly manage. I'm going to be using the Montane 20 Plus, the Gekko. Just behind me here. It is called Gekko, isn't it? The new version. There we go, brain's leaving me. Yes, Gekko Vp20. So same style as the usual running vests, but it's just got a much larger capacity, so I can get all the kit that I need for the couple of days into there. And again, you've got your soft flask on the front, you've got pockets everywhere for all your kit. It's just got a much larger pack on the back. But in the past, I've taken my more alpine mountaineering pack, which is a lot bigger. But the problem is you're tempted to then put more kit in, so then you're carrying more kit, and then your energy needs go up, your hydration needs go up. So again, I would encourage you to, if you are going to do this, take the smallest kit possible, go as light as possible, but still being safe. So again, you've got to think about the conditions you're going out in. What's the weather going to be like? It might be fine during the day, but is it going to get cold at night? I've been caught out in the past, about sort of, must be best part of 15, if not, no, more like 20 years ago. I was going out and doing a fast packing trip before going out and climbing Kilimanjaro, and quickly discovered that my sleeping bag, which I thought was decent for cold weather, wasn't. So the next day it was straight into Keswick to get a better sleeping bag. So yes, make sure that you're taking adequate equipment for the conditions that you're in. Hopefully in the conditions we've got at the moment, cold is not one of the sensations I'm going to feel over the next few days, quite the opposite. So that's maybe a couple of things to think about in terms of if you want to add in some big long hiking days, or maybe even some fast packing into your training. Then there was a question, I can't quite find it now on the Facebook page, but I'm sure I saw something pop up about going hiking, but then at altitude, and thinking about dealing with heights and maybe sort of fear of heights. I can't remember. I'm afraid I have actually lost where that was posted, but I'm sure somebody did stick a post on there somewhere. I'm just having another quick look on the Facebook page to see if I can find who it was from. No, it seems to have disappeared. Maybe they've actually taken that post down, but I'll answer that question anyway. I mean, a fear of heights, I have to admit, is something that I deal with as well, and even going climbing, it is something that I have to get over. Fear of heights is a normal, natural sensation to have. So I think the first thing is, if you are nervous or even scared of heights, is be kind to yourself, because it's a very normal, a very natural feeling to have. But if you are running on some of these more exposed trails, maybe some ridges, some balconies, things like that, is thinking about, well, what is it that you're scared of? And other things that are going on in your life, which is adding to that extra anxiety. And often if we've got other anxiety issues that are feeding into us, then any kind of fear of the heights that we're at will be amplified. Getting used to heights and getting used to that altitude comes with essentially just repeated exposure. So you might find if you've not been at altitude or at heights for a long time, when I'm saying altitude, I'm meaning just more kind of exposed areas rather than actual kind of physiological altitude. But if you've not been in sort of more exposed areas or running in higher terrain, you might find that just as the time goes on, you just get more and more used to it. Your confidence builds up again. So it might be a case of, before you going out to the mountains, is put yourself in some scenarios where you are just, stood up on a raised area, on a whether it's on a kind of wall or ledge or something like that, and just get used to being that few foot off the ground. Working on things like your balance, so improve your confidence of being able to balance. So in my garden, I've got set up as kind of playthings for the kids, little balance beams. And a little sort of, basically it's a plyo box. It's a big wooden box with some little rungs built up into it. So I can practice towing in. So if I'm doing some mountaineering where I'm going to be on crampons, so I can get my hard boots out, my winter boots, and just get used to just getting my toes on a ledge and just walking up and down this box. I can get used to just walking along a very narrow beam. It's only a couple of inches off the ground, but it just gets you used to that balancing, gets your brain and your proprioception kicked in for balancing on narrow terrain. So you get used to that, and then when you're up high, again, you know you've got the confidence, you know that you can balance, so it gives you that extra level of confidence when you're maybe in those kind of scenarios. And you can challenge yourself, so you can be doing things like step ups and step downs, but with your eyes closed. So again, take out that element of your balance and make you really think about your joint senses and feel where your body's at. Improve that. When you're then in that kind of terrain, you've got the confidence that when you put your foot down on something and you take your weight, you know you're going to balance because you've done it hundreds of times at home in training. So that's kind of some things maybe to think about in terms of if you are going running on more sort of higher mountainous terrain. I'd encourage you, if that is something that you feel you struggle with. I mean, I've got friends in my running club who struggle with going up our local hill, which is, I mean, it's not even a mountain, but even just going up a very steep incline on a grassy bank, and they freak out at that because they're so scared of heights. What I would say is, if that is something that you struggle with, is have a listen to some of my colleagues' podcasts and sort of interviews on lattice training. So there's if you're not into climbing, if you're not aware of it, Lattice Training is a fantastic coaching company. I do a bit of work with them as well, with my physio hat, and support their athletes and their clients on their private Facebook group as well. So if anybody's a member of Lattice 365, you'll know me from there as well. But they do a lot of interviews, a lot of webinars, and there's a few YouTube clips that they've got on their channel, which is looking at fear. So okay, we're talking about climbing there and getting over the fear of falling or fear of being at heights and things like that. But this is where we as runners can learn a lot from other sports, and in this case learning from our climbing colleagues. So if you want to look a little bit more about that, then maybe go and have a listen to some of the lattice training YouTube clips there. I'll try and maybe put a link in the comments afterwards on this YouTube clip. So then I've just had a question come through here from Chris Williams. So let me follow on to that one, and then I'll go back to the Facebook page. So Chris is saying, I'm not so much of a runner really. Oh, I can actually click that onto the page, can't I? There we go. So I'm not so much of a runner really, but here goes. I walk quite a lot and usually wear my Mendel boots, but recently wearing Salomon X Ultra 3s, let me get in pain in both of my feet. Okay, so it depends on what kind of pain and where you're getting it, Chris. If it's more, again, hiking, and this is where some of the running shoe companies are actually sort of shifting over and trying to fill a bit of a gap in the hiking market as well. So I know sort of Innovate and Hoka have produced some more hiking boot versions of some of their footwear, just to give you that little bit of extra ankle support. And it might just be that, again, the Salomons are just not fitting your foot shape properly. So it depends what the heel-toe drop is on your Mendel boots. Salomons generally have a slightly higher heel-to-toe drop, so maybe again that's just not quite fitting your natural ankle and foot shape. Salomons are a little bit on the narrower side compared to a lot of other shoes out there, so other versions being like maybe the wide-fitting Ultras, for example. So it might be if you've got quite wide feet that Salomon are just a little bit too narrow for you and then just squeezing your feet. So that might be something there. Or again, if you're used to more hiking boots, which are obviously a stiff sole, and you're used to being able to kind of put your foot down on a jagged rock, and just the thickness and the toughness of that sole can take it. Whereas your running shoes are going to be a lot more pliable and going to mould. So those small little jagged bits of rock that normally you can just put your flat foot straight down onto, you put your more kind of Salomon shoes down onto them, and they're going to give, and you're going to feel that pressing up into your foot. So that's something else to be aware of. Here we go. Chris has followed up. So it's on the top of the feet, sort of big toe coming round. So if it's on the top of the foot there, so that might be more the tendons running from your big toe coming up through the sort of front of the ankle, as it were. And that might just be that the laces are too tight. So if your feet are swelling, then the top of the shoes then squeezing down that, on the sort of bony part. So that's probably the kind of knuckly bit on the top of the foot there. So if the laces are squeezing down on there, let's just see if everyone else can follow the conversation that's appearing on my screen there. So Chris is following up. So saying it's on the sort of bony bit of the top of the foot. So that'll be where the tendon's running underneath there. You've got some connective tissue holding that down in place. And it might just be that the laces are just pressing down on the top of the foot, just rubbing on that tendon, causing that irritation. So you ought to be looking at maybe changing the lacing structure, or with not sure the Salomon Ultras, they got their quick lace system on those. I think they do, don't they? So what you can't necessarily do is change your lacing sort of pattern to miss out that section to reduce that pressure, but it might just be trying to have slightly looser lacing over the top of that foot. It might be a case of looking at stretching out the calf. So sometimes what we're doing is we're working the muscles on the front of the foot a lot harder to pull the toes up because the calf is tight at the back. So loosen off the calf, and you find that the muscles at the front of the shin don't need to work quite as hard. Or what you may need to do is also get into the front of that shin and massage the muscles through the front of the shin where they're running down into that tendon through the front of that foot. If you have a look on my personal YouTube channel, and again I'll put a link in the comment section of this one afterwards, I've got some videos on some massage techniques for the front of the shin, which would then address the tightness if that is the case in you there. So hopefully that answers your question there, Chris. Now, if I go back to the Facebook page here, which follows on quite nicely, Arlene Matelock is asking a question about shoes. So hiking boots or trail runners better? And when would extra support around the ankle, as in boots, be needed? And again, she's saying here, yeah, so a lot of trail shoe companies are coming out with high top shoes. So under what conditions, if ever, should they be used? So good, that sort of again follows on from what I was just saying there. Yeah, I used to do a lot of these hiking trips in my hiking boots, but as I've gone on to more and more ultra running, then I will generally stick with my ultra running shoes and more sort of trail running shoes. And even in the Alps, going up to maybe sort of mountain huts, which I'm then going on to climb later, I will do the approach in my more trail running shoes because they are lighter, they're more comfortable, they're more breathable rather than boots. But this is, yes, where some of these companies are bringing out those sort of hybrids of kind of trail running but with a bit more ankle support. And certainly for some people who have quite unstable ankles, then having that little bit of extra support around the ankle, people report that makes them feel that bit more secure. So rather than needing to tape their ankles or use ankle braces, it just gives them that little extra bit of support. So I think if it is more of a long distance hike type session that you're doing, so maybe it is a multi-day, I'm thinking as the classic being something like the Spine race, which goes past very, very near where I live here, then something like that hybrid might not be a bad shout. If you are going somewhere where there's going to be maybe a large amount of scree and you're not wanting maybe to wear gaiters as well, then having that slightly higher ankle might give you a little bit of extra support there. I'm testing and reviewing some of the La Sportiva Cyclones for Wild Ginger Running, so I'll actually be using those over the next few days, and they've got that little bit of extra ankle support and a bit of sort of inbuilt gaiter there. So it'll be interesting to see how I get on when I'm running down some of the scree slopes this next few days. So I think it's going to be personal preference. If you're very comfortable in those kind of approach shoe type shoes where they've got maybe a bit of a stiffer sole, but it's more of that kind of hybrid of running shoe to walking shoe, then they're a good shout. If it is going to be something where you're going to be very much kind of running with a bit of hiking, very much run, walk, then I'd probably go more for my trail running type shoes. If it is something where it's very much of a hiking trip with maybe a very small amount of jogging, then I might go for something more like the high ankle sort of running boots or actually walking boots if it is going to be very much more of a hiking type trip. So I guess it really depends on what the terrain is that you're going to be going on, what the purpose of the trip is in terms of, is it a run walk or is it just a hike? And yeah, do you need that little bit of extra support there? So there's not going to be a straight answer to that question, Arlene. But yeah, it depends on what you're doing and what you're needing them for. And you know what we like? We like having lots of different shoes for different purposes. So maybe this is a good excuse to go shopping and add to your collection. My wife despairs of me with the number of running shoes I've got. She doesn't quite understand how, we need different shoes for different types of mud and different shoes for different types of rock and different distances and so on and so forth. But yes, we need lots of different shoes, don't we? We do like buying shoes, us lot. Okay, if I come back over to the YouTube questions here. John, hi John. So as a physio, do I ever prescribe a night splint to keep an irritated heel at an angle? Yes, I do. So things like Strasbourg socks, which is more the kind of sock with a strap coming from the big toe up to the front of your shin to help pull the toe and foot up there. There is evidence to show that in particularly kind of slow to respond, problematic sort of plantar fascia, Achilles tendon problems, they can be useful. They don't put a lot of force through the foot, so if we're needing more, then yes, again, there is evidence to show that in some cases a boot, so a night splint, can be useful. It just stops obviously your feet flopping down, pointing your toes down, so the calf and Achilles and plantar fascia all kind of shorten, and then you get up in the morning, you've got to stretch it all out. So it stops that happening. The only problem with that is, of course, that they are quite uncomfortable. Even the Strasbourg sock can be quite uncomfortable, and the boot most definitely is uncomfortable. So is it going to disturb your sleep? And sleep's really important as well. Sometimes if I find my calves, my Achilles are getting super tight because I'm doing a lot of training, I will sometimes put my Strasbourg sock on just to put things on a bit of a stretch. But often what will happen is I'll wake up halfway through the night and I'll be annoyed with it and I'll take it off. But often that half a night just means when I do get up in the morning, I haven't had, I want to say 8 hours, but let's be honest, more like sort of 6.5, 7. So 6 hours sleep, not good, need more. I've had maybe sort of 3 to 4 hours where I've had it on a stretch, and then maybe on another 3 or maybe 4 hours where it's been relaxed. So they can be useful, definitely. So if it is something, I think you've asked questions in the past around your Achilles, so this is obviously something that you're struggling with, then I would probably say, first of all, maybe try a Strasbourg sock. And if that gives you the support you need at night time to stop everything tightening up, great. If you're still struggling, then yes, then paying that extra for a boot can be useful. But again, the long-term fix is about strengthening it. So it's going through your strengthening rehab protocols to build that up. So, okay, that hopefully answers John and Chris's questions there. Let me go back to the Facebook page. Was there anything else coming up on the Facebook page? So that was Arlene. Yeah, so Leon followed up about the questions about doing fast packing. So hopefully I've covered Leon's questions there. Yeah, nothing else showing up on either of those. Come back to my eCamp. Here we go. Oh, John's followed up there. So, okay, so not much force, but a gentle nudge to the right angle. That's right. Yeah, so he's definitely on the mend, but sometimes feeling tight early in the runs. Yeah, so again, this is where if there's feeling a little tight early in the runs, you might want to look at a pre-warm-up where you do a little bit of foam rollering, or you do use a golf ball or a massage ball on the bottom of the foot just to get things moving, just to start to loosen them off. Foam rollering and things like that, it does have a temporary short-term improvement on tissue length. It's nothing magical, but it will have a temporary improvement. So if you do that, maybe sort of 5-10 minutes, so as you're getting your running kit on, spend a couple of minutes just rolling your feet, rolling your calves, and then you go and get your running shoes, get your gear together. Another 5 minutes has passed. You do the first bit of your warm-up before leaving the house. You've done that mobility stuff, maybe 5, even 10 minutes before you start running. But that effect will last, and it'll just mean those first few miles or the first few minutes of running, you're not dealing with that tightness before you've loosened it all off. So I would do that. Another question just popped in here from, let's see if I can pop that on there. So Jonathan Russell, so a long distance walker, including overnights, so saves on accommodation. Yeah, so just going straight through. Who needs to sleep? Started running, reached 10k fine, but then developed a cyst under the middle of the left foot where the foot bends. Fine when it's hiking, but wants to run again. Any suggestions? So it depends on what kind of cyst it is and exactly what structures it's in as to the answer to your question there. But I'd probably link that back to the earlier question from Chris as to, is it something about the running shoes that you were using versus the sort of walking shoes or hiking boots that you've used previously? Just see for everyone's benefit here. Jonathan's popped up here, so not bad enough to think of an op for one who's got any experience. Yeah, so it might be a case of looking at, can you offload that tissue? So resize that. Can you offload the tissue somehow? So is it a case of looking at your shoes so that you're not putting any pressure down on that cyst? So is it about changing the lacing structure of your shoes? Is it about padding it out? So it might be a case of adding some extra tape or some extra padding, sort of Compeed around that area, just to give yourself some extra padding and support around that tissue, so that your shoes are not then rubbing and pressing on that. So that might be something to think about there. But yeah, it really depends on exactly what type of cyst and in what tissues it has formed. Again, if it's a sort of fluid-filled cyst, they can try and drain them, and they can inject them, sort of steroid injections, things like that. But the problem is you're running the risk of inducing an infection. So if you can avoid that, then do so at all costs, because the chances are, a cyst will then just fill back up again. But we can often get these cysts that form, and they will then go away again. So it is sometimes a matter of just watch and wait. It might be a bit frustrating. So it really depends on maybe how long you've had it for. But yeah, the first thing I'll be looking at is, why did it happen in the first place? Was it something about your running shoes which then created that, rather than it just kind of happening for the fun of it and just coming out of nowhere? Okay, does that answer your question there, Jonathan? Fine. Any other questions? I don't know how many people are actually watching live. I've got a few showing up on here. I'll just give you a minute just to see if anything comes through on the YouTube comments. So if there's nothing else coming through, I think we've been going for just over half an hour. There's a review that I did for the Supernatural fuel pouches, which is coming out next Monday. I think it's scheduled for release, so keep an eye on that. That's been in the pipeline for a little while now, so some of you may remember me posting about that on some of my social media channels a few months back now, actually. So keep an eye on that and see what my thoughts were on the Supernatural fuel pouches. And then, as I mentioned, I'm going to be doing a review on the La Sportiva Cyclone shoes. So again, keep an eye on that one. That should hopefully be coming out quite soon as well. And I'm also finishing off a review on different running insoles. So again, that'll be following up later on, maybe in the next sort of month or two. Claire will have that scheduled for release. So there's a few other things in the pipeline. Chris has just followed up with a final point. Let me just pop that on the screen. So what he's noticed is the Solomon Ultra 3s don't have as much of a heel drop. So in terms of, so slightly higher heel compared to maybe a flatter walking boot. So it's just going to change the whole angle of how that foot is working. So the tissues at the front of the ankle are going to be working at more of a stretch position rather than in their normal sort of mid-range position. So it might just be that, yes, if they are a little bit tight at the front of the shin, you're now walking with them on a little bit of a stretch all the time, which is then making those tendons rub along the front of that ankle. So yes, it'd be a case of working into the front of that shin, so working through that muscle, the tibialis anterior and extensor hallucis and so on and so forth. Getting into there, maybe using your thumbs, using your knuckles, getting a golf ball, massage ball, something like that. So again, I've got some videos on my personal YouTube channel just demonstrating that for my clients. So maybe have a look at that. Try loosening off those muscles at the front of the shin and see whether that fixes your problem. But if not, if it does persist, then obviously the advice would be go and see somebody in person where they can actually do a detailed assessment on you, and hopefully that'll help. Okay, right, well, thank you very much for joining us for another live session. Hopefully that's been useful. Covered a few different topics there. Like I say, make sure that, all you guys are patrons, so you're all subscribed to Wild Ginger. But again, if you want to follow me personally, then I've got the links to my personal YouTube, and actually my YouTube's not up on there, but my Insta is up on there, and you can find me on YouTube. I think it's just the same, Tim_Piggott, or just Tim Piggott on YouTube, and you'll find my stuff there. Okay, thanks very much, and no doubt I'll see you for another live session in a few weeks. All right, see you later, guys. Bye-bye.